Thank you for joining me today. In this video, you will learn Mesolimbic pathway. What is Mesolimbic pathway? Mesolimbic pathway is a dopamine pathway, and it is from Ventral Tegmental Area, Ventral Tegmental Area, also called VTA, and it goes to Nucleus Accumbens limbic system. The function of Mesolimbic pathway is reward, motivation, salience, importance of a stimuli. This pathway tells the brain what is important. What happens is in schizophrenia. So, schizophrenia, this pathway, when the dopamine is too high, it causes hyperactivity for schizophrenia patient. Excessive dopamine in a mesolimbic pathway overstimulates of a D2 receptor. That results brain assigning too much meaning to silence to stimuli. And that leads to positive symptoms. Why positive symptoms? Because the mechanism causes apparent silence. Excessive dopamine causes misinterpretation of the stimuli, false connections, and disorganized perception. Clinical outcomes are hallucination, delusion, and disorganized thinking. Hallucination is an interpretation that is perceived as a real. Delusion is a false belief that becomes logically convincing. Disorganized thinking example is schizophrenia is noise is something spying on the person. They think if they hear noise, there is somebody spying on them, because the dopamine says this is important, pay attention. So, medication and treatment of mesolimbic overactivation. Core treatment goals are to reduce the dopamine activity in the mesolimbic pathway, that the mechanism of the antipsychiatric medications are to block the dopamine from D2 receptors. That will decrease the dopamine signals, and it will increase the hallucination, delusion, and disorganized thoughts. So the first type of antipsychiatric medications are first generation typical antipsychiatric medication, and they are strong D2 receptor anti-agents. So they block the dopamine from the D2 receptor. That reduces the positive symptoms of a schizophrenia. Those medications include Haldol, chlorobarbamazine, that we talked about deeply in one of my videos, and effects are very effective for positive symptoms. Haldol and chlorobarbamazine are very effective for the positive symptoms of schizophrenia. However, they have a high risk of EBS side effects. Why? Because they are not selective. They block dopamine everywhere. Second generation antipsychotic, also called atypical, they block dopamine D2 receptor and also serotonin. They block serotonin and they block dopamine. Those medications include Risperdal, olanzapine, Seroquel, clonazepam. They are effective and they treat positive symptoms of schizophrenia and also better for negative symptoms. They treat both. And they also have less ABS symptoms, so they cause less EBS. And these EBS side effects are muscle movement, and they are very risky side effects. There is also partial agonist stabilizer that is aripiprazole. Aripiprazole is a partial agonist. It blocks partially and is a mood stabilizer. It stabilizes the positive and negative symptoms of schizophrenia. And it acts anti-agonist where the dopamine is high in Mesolimbic system, agonist where the dopamine is low, so it balances both the low and the high, and it's dopamine stabilizer. That is aripiprazole medication called aripiprazole. Okay, Mesolimbic pathway increases dopamine and increases D2 activation. It creates positive symptoms of schizophrenia. Positive symptoms of schizophrenia include hallucination, delusion, and disorganized thinking. Medication that lowers the dopamine and lowers the positive symptoms of schizophrenia is antipsychotic that blocks D2 receptor from dopamine, and that leads to low dopamine and lower positive symptoms. Limbic system is a low symptoms. It creates low symptoms. Too much dopamine will lead to hallucination and delusion and disorganized thinking. Antipsychotic medications block dopamine. Important clinical insight. Antipsychotic treat a positive symptoms and but may worsen a negative symptoms in mesocortical dopamine. Mesocortical dopamine has a lower dopamine, so when the antipsychiatric medication blocks all the dopamine or most of the dopamine, it will create negative symptoms of schizophrenia, and that happens low dopamine and negative symptoms of schizophrenia happens in the mesocortical area. So patient will hear voices, patient will have a paranoia delusion, and because they have a high dopamine in the mesolimbic pathway, they need antipsychiatric medication that blocks dopamine in the D2 receptor. Thank you for joining me today. I would love to see you in my next